Hey DFW, I hope you and your family are well. I'm Kyle Mason. I've been investing in real estate since 2016. I've flipped land, developed a mobile home park. I'm on my second development now. Help DFW locals buy and sell their homes as a real estate agent, and I've wholesaled single family homes. Currently, I'm an acquisition agent of single family homes here in DFW area. Today, we're discussing how America's largest landlord gobbled up a build to rent operation. We'll discuss local blowback in Forney against a flood of new renters and a newer build community, which I thought is very appropriate to see what the potential of a build to rent neighborhood could become. And we'll opine a little bit on some of Trump's announcements to what they say will crush housing costs. Now, why does all this matter to you? Well, stick around and you could just become a little better prepared or come up with a few strategies to thrive as an investor, agent, wholesaler, or developer in this shifting market. All right, let's jump in. Invitation Homes just shelled out $89 million for ResiBuilt, supercharging a build-to-rent game in the Southeast. And it's got major implications for DFW with this trend gaining traction. I'll go ahead and read a little bit from the article here, Business Wire. Invitation Homes, the nation's premier single-family home leasing and management company, announced today its acquisition of ResiBuilt Homes, a leading build-to-rent developer in high-growth markets across the Southeast. The acquisition strengthens Invitation Homes' ability to deliver design communities that meet the needs of today's families. By increasing housing supply through new construction and leveraging capital-light partnerships, the company aims to help address a nation's growing demand for attainable, high-quality housing. Invitation Homes acquired ResiBuilt for the contract price of $89 million plus up to $7.5 million in potential incentive-based earn-out payments tied to third-party fee-built performance. Excuse me. They're headquartered in Atlanta. They develop single-family home communities, mostly in Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. Ever since 2018, ResiBuilt delivered more than 4,200 homes and earned a reputation for quality construction, operational efficiency, and resident-focused approach to community design. The transaction includes 23 existing fee-building contracts, along with a pipeline of additional third-party fee opportunities not yet under construction. Invitation Homes also secured the option to acquire approximately 1,500 well-located lots for future purposes. But you get the idea. Both companies are happy about the deal. I'm sure there were, massive stock options or incentives of some type for the people at the top. Hey, good for them. Now, again, there's no land in the buy, but they did lock in options for 1,500 lots, positioning them to pump out thousands of more rentals to reduce. And just real quick, what this does is, this reduces their risk. They didn't actually have to go up front and buy the land, kind of keeping it capital light, which that's what that statement was kind of leading towards, is the fact that, they didn't have to put out all this money, and it's going to be able to help them pivot or decide where to build or when to build. And they just had to pay the option fees on these lots. And that's going to be great, in the broader market or particular submarkets. If the rents soften or demand continues to increase in some places, that's great. Now, what does this move really do? This move internalizes construction, it slashes costs, and it gives them like an end-to-end control over build-to-rent communities, which could ripple into DFW by intensifying competition for local investors chasing efficiency. So I bring this all up is because if you're a buy and hold or a passive flipper or a wholesaler, this is something to really consider when you run your deals. Yes, like numbers are good inside the sub, but if you just take a second and zoom out a little bit, 0.75 miles out, a mile out, and there's new builds all around, or let's say there's acreage that is vacant, that is not yet zoned or possibly zoned for residential, these guys show up. If you're planning on renting and holding this, you may consider, running your numbers off of slightly lower rents and see if the thing still cash flows. And likewise, if you're a flipper, this is something to consider. If the build rent to model does come in, I'm kind of making this point a little early, but it's a story that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But if you're a flipper, is something to consider as well. The trouble that can come with a build to rent neighborhoods are turned into large renting areas with little or no oversight. Now, again, ResiBuilt's based in Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas, but depending on what this administration says, or what they come out with, and particularly on this topic, they actually could potentially get some bipartisan support. And I know that's crazy, kind of a crazy idea that politicians might be able to agree on something because their status quo is never agree with each other on anything. But something like, hey, keeping, what most people think is Wall Street or large single family home investors, to keep them out of the market, it's kind of an easy scapegoat. And I don't see that you get really too much pushback depending on what the bill actually said if you pushed it for an actual bill rather than an executive order or some kind of rules changes through HUD or financing or just all the other levers that they have. They could be cut out of the market, right? And in order to survive, they may have to pivot. This right here seems like the next logical move to insulate themselves so they're not caught off guard. If they start building rent-to-own housing, they can kind of keep their business model alive just to some degree. In DFW, we will be and have already been a solid investment for companies like these for many years now. All right, that's big business, big builders, and big money. Let's talk about a situation right here in DFW. And I think this is a really appropriate example of potential negatives of build-to-rent model. The location has a lot of land around it. It has a lot of new builds going in. Builders are struggling to sell their products, longer days on market. Even with all the incentives and everything, they just can't really seem to move the product as fast as they would like. And they have to keep building, right? If you're a builder, you got to keep building, right? And so what's happening? Well, these houses are getting unloaded to investors. And what are these investors doing? Well, they're not living in the homes, they're turning them into rentals. And Section 8 rentals specifically has been cited as an issue. Now, this dynamic is leading to an increase in crime in the Forney area. And let me read a little bit of this article here so you can see what Forney City Council had to say. From NBC DFW, Channel 5, in North Texas, neighbors in the Gateway Parks subdivision in Forney say rising crime is threatening their safety, and they blame a surge in investor-owned rental properties. There are families who say they can't even go outside and take their kids to play or even have their garages open because there is a concern that something's going to happen to them. Just Sunday night, my neighbor's car was stolen. A drug exchange was performed while talking to that neighbor and looking at my cameras to see if we could find anything that would benefit him. Between that, multiple gunshots, cars racing up and down the streets, he said. Both residents point to the latest phase of their neighborhood developed by Ashton Woods, where they say many homes are now owned by investors and rented out. Earlier this week, the Forney City Council denied Ashton Woods' request to build more homes after city staff reported that rentals account for more than 1 in 4 homes across the subdivision. In the specific phase in question, neighbors told council members rentals make up more than 80% of the homes on some streets. The council cited public health, safety, and welfare in its denial, referencing crime statistics, public nuisances, and strain on city resources. It goes on and on. Let's read. Developer Ashton Woods respond to concerns with the statement. We have been made aware of inaccurate public statements regarding our involvement in Gateway Parks and are taking steps to work directly with the city and homeowners to address this statement. We have complied with state and local laws and community guidelines throughout our involvement in Gateway Parks, and we operate under the principles of equal housing opportunity and fair housing law. We have reached out to Forney PD to explore potential ways Ashton Woods and Starlight Homes can collaborate with Forney Police Department to enhance safety throughout the community. Company spokesperson did not indicate whether Ashton Woods plans to appeal the city's decision or submit a new application. All right, let me read this statement from one of the Forney City Council members. James Traylor is calling for decisive action to address the rapid increase in rental properties, including Section 8 voucher housing and corporate-owned single-family rentals. Many residents express concerns that this trend is destabilizing neighborhoods and reducing property values. Traylor, who has over 17 years in experience in multifamily development and property management, asserts, I understand housing and I know what works and what doesn't. The current situation for Forney is not going to create a future we want for the city. Forney was never built for this level of rapid single-family rental saturation. When you combine corporate, landlord, Section 8 placement, and investors who have never stepped foot in Forney, it creates real strain. We need accountability, and right now, the system allows too many bad actors to operate without consequence. look, if you're an agent, investor, wholesaler, or home buyer, this is something that you have to watch out for, right? If you flood an area with rentals, you risk value drops. You risk problems with HOAs. You risk people getting together and forming an HOA where there was not one. You risk council crackdowns like this packed meeting where homeowners showed up and demanded rental limits to reclaim safety. And this builder got denied for expanding their operations. Now, I'll be transparent here. I'm with this. I think that they have every right to do this as citizens of that area, show up to the city council meeting, put pressure on the city council members. And of course, city council members are going to side with the people that are showing up to the meeting. I don't think that this is a group of Karens going around in a citizen patrol SUV telling people where they can and can't park, or saying you can't fish in this local pond. I've seen it all over Instagram too. Dallas TV or whatever the Instagram page is, they've posted things on it too. And look, this is city council can be a little bit of a tricky issue if you're in real estate. Sometimes they'll do things like this where it's like, okay, that's a no-brainer. Other times, look, I've seen city council say no to developments and businesses that there's really nothing wrong with them, with the business or the request. It didn't fit their city planner's desktop model. Like they wanted a certain quarter to have a Starbucks on it, and not a mobile home sales lot. Even though like that actually made the most sense, there's already heavy machinery sales going on in that area that have been perfect for it, and the lot still sits vacant today. But again, they have ultimate control over that. Now, this is going to be the backlash if these build to rent communities come in and they don't do this properly. Cities are going to say no, you can't build here. We don't like what you're doing. We don't like how things are being handled. Not in my backyard. I'm sure you've heard that. And this is a perfect example, really, is like California, for instance. One of the reasons that home prices got ran up so high is because of all the zoning restrictions and all the restrictions on building. Neighborhoods would be built, people would move in, and they didn't want continuous building around them. Like, oh, I like the way it is. They have a incentive to say no to pressure city councils with zoning to not have more building, right? And you have even more of an incentive if your home is in a prime location in the city. The less housing available, the more value that your home has. So with this, you are going to see, you kind of get to see the push and pull of issues with development, the city, private interests, HOAs, zoning, and all of it. All right, so let's kind of tie all this together here. Seeing the different dynamics, it's really easy just to say, hey, housing is too expensive. Just go out and fix it. Let's build the 5 to 7 million homes that we're behind, or that we didn't build in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we kind of started building homes in 14 and 15. So we're behind the curve. That's what most of the reports say. Let's just build those homes right where we need them, and that'll fix the issue. Now, in this instance, look at the situation. People are saying that we're behind on supply, but we have homes that are sitting on the market longer and longer, particularly here in the new build areas of Forney. And the homes are not selling to families that are looking for a home. And so they have to kind of be unloaded to investors to then rent them. So kind of interesting dynamic. It's like we don't have enough supply yet. These homes aren't selling. That's kind of another interesting little thing that we're running across. It's like if we don't have enough supply, you'd think there'd be multiple offers on each house. It's like, well, we don't have enough supply because people, pretty much we just need so many homes that homes become cheaper. So late last year, Trump asserted that the cost of living was a hoax. It was a Democrat hoax or a con job. Since then, he has received a lot of heat, not only from the usual haters and his political opponents, but from his base as well. Right? They have been very vocal about how, one, he should not be saying things like this, and two, there are still some serious issues with affordability and especially housing, which that's what we're talking about. Now, obviously, they'll point to like, hey, the price of eggs has absolutely plummeted, gasoline, other commodities and things that we use in our everyday lives definitely have come down, and that does help. Of course, housing really hasn't come down that much, although it is trending. If you look at days on market, if you look at the actual prices that these homes are selling for is trending in that direction. But really, so to say all that, since the beginning of the year, the Trump administration is starting to focus on the affordability issue of housing.
You have a lot of people have housing that, because we have such a strong time and such a strong market, their houses are very valuable. It's a big part of their net worth, their house. I don't want to knock those numbers down, because I want them to continue to have a big value for their house. At the same time, I want to make it possible for young people out there and other people to buy housing. In a way, they're at conflict. In other words, you create a lot of housing all of a sudden, and it drives the housing prices down. So I want to take care of the people that have houses that have a value to the house that they never thought possible, that have sort of made them wealthy and happy, and especially in their later years. Got to be careful with that. I want to keep them up. At the same time, I want to make it possible for people to go buy houses.
Now, this is a bit of a tightrope that they are walking here, because, of course, the age of first-time home buyers is rising because it's harder and harder, or I'll say more expensive relative to wages for younger people to actually get into a home and become homeowners. So he has to come up with programs that help people get into homes, but doesn't necessarily flood the market or make home values go down, because that would negatively affect a large voting demographic that he would have to contend with, which is older people that have homes, right? Older people own the homes, and they have a lot of their net worth wrapped up in the high value of their homes. And they have been paying attention to those values, especially over the past several years. So let's go through some of these programs, I guess. I mean, really, they're just ideas at this point. We already talked about banning institutional investors. That was kind of the shot across the bow, like, hey, I'm going to get out, I'm going to do something. And that one really is kind of popular for both, I guess, right and left, however you would say. And I think that I'm assuming that this deal was already in the works for some time, but you can kind of see how institutional investors are going to start pivoting and kind of realigning what they could potentially be doing in the future. Now, what exactly does it mean, or who will be affected, and the size and the scopes of those regulations? No one really knows. We'll find out in a week or so, which gives us plenty of time to ponder. He has also mentioned Fannie and Freddie Mac buying $200 billion in mortgage bonds, which they have already slowly started to do. Now, I can't really see from looking around on the internet anywhere if anyone can really put a fine point on what that will actually do with interest rates, or where they would end up with that many bonds being bought. The general consensus is that it'll bring them down. How much? Not really sure. There's some fairly wide ranges. Some people are saying that it'll be negligible. Other people are saying, bring it down a percentage point or more. I guess that will be, yet to see. We just have to see how that plays out. Now, if it does drop, almost an entire point or more, I mean, that would definitely help out with the affordability. That definitely changes your monthly payment, lets you, which most people do, max out their monthly payment to buy a bigger house, or buy a smaller house that fits your actual needs and reduce your monthly payment. Now, just recently, they're floating a 401k withdrawal for down payments, letting folks tap into their retirement savings penalty-free to jump into ownership and jockeying up as some kind of investment into that home. It's kind of mixed signals on this one. A lot of kind of, we'll send it out there and then kind of see what the feedback is, and then zig or zag depending on how it goes. Now. Okay, without knowing any details, so I'm really putting the cart before the horse here. The first issue I see is, if you don't have enough money to get into a home in the first place, what is the likelihood that you have a lot of money sitting in a 401k that you could use to invest or use as a down payment into a home? So it feels like, just like with that little bit, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. As far as I'm aware, you can already purchase homes using a self-directed 401k IRA situation for investments. So I'm not really sure how this is a substantial step to making homes more affordable for what I thought was an intended audience for affordability would be younger people that just are kind of caught just constantly renting, making it cheaper for young people to buy homes. starting the generational wealth building, building a community that they care about, etc. Now, if this turns into, well, your parents can use their 401k to help you with your down payment, and that would be that would be their investment in the equity and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I mean, yeah, that, I guess that works. I mean, that could help, but that doesn't necessarily address the actual monthly payment. I guess if they put 20%, 30, 40, 50% down for you, but your parents must, love you if they really are going to be doing that. And I don't know if that necessarily makes homes more affordable in the sense of now, you're going to just bring a bunch more buyers back into the market. So it's a real push and pull here with what they are actually trying to achieve here. Get the monthly payment down is my idea of affordability. So we'll see kind of what they come up with. Again, tightrope to walk, making sure that they don't just have home values losing value too quickly or too much because, boomers or just older people that own homes are going to be very upset about that. And they're the group that shows up to vote the most. They donate the most. They have the most influence. So if everyone's hope is like, oh, we'll just have housing prices drop dramatically and that will make my monthly payment go down, that's probably not going to happen. More likely it was going to happen, and an easier fix would be, doing something with the interest rate. Most people in the industry kind of point to these three things being the biggest driver of the unaffordable issue that we're talking about here. And this is more like in the last couple of years, not in a 2015 year cycle of not keeping up with the proper build amounts. Think more in the last, 5 years. One would be the interest rates, which we just discussed. Interest rates going from 3.5% to 6%. All of a sudden, you can only buy a lot. You buy a lot less house with that monthly payment, whatever it is that you happen to qualify for. Right. The next thing, which everyone has experienced, is rising interest rates. Right. If you're already in a home and you've been getting those notifications that your withholdings is not filled, like you have to keep putting money into your escrow account, right? It's very frustrating that your insurance rates are going up, and you have to go out and get requoted, and your deductibles are going up, and they're not going to cover your roof, et cetera, et cetera. Now that's from insurance companies losing money over the past couple of years, or not doing so well, so they've had to beef up interest rates, and they have left certain states as well. So that's been a huge driving cost. If you're already in a home, you just kind of make up the difference if, as much as you can. But if you're looking to buy a home, you are going to be qualified off an expected insurance rate in your monthly payment. And the next would be rising taxes. Taxes, local city taxes, county taxes, those have been on the rise as well because of values have been running up over the past several years. And every time your value goes up, your taxes are going to go up. And then I'm sure if you've been voting, you've gone into the voting booth, and almost every single time you have seen where it's like, hey, do you want to, agree to this bond of, $9 billion, whatever it was, to build a new stadium, and we need this and we need that. It's fairly challenging, and those almost always get passed because they're worded in such a way where people don't know what they're voting for, or it's like, do you care about children? Like, do you want them to go to bed hungry at night? Well, if you do care, you'd vote yes. And so it's just very like your taxes are always going to be going up. Now, that's even with state legislators, taking steps to lower the burden and pay down taxes, but almost every single time that's happened, local cities will increase their percentages of what they're taxing you on, and you almost feel like you didn't even save anything. So those are really the three big driving costs there. Now, I hope you gained something from this. Again, all the information is down below with the links to these articles, so you can take a quick look at them. There's also a subscribe button down below. So y'all be great. Thank you so much.